who are you? Are you the person that your environment taught you to be based upon other people's desires and agendas so that they can feel comfortable with what they view the life and world is? Like your parents, school, religions, the media, society. You know, if you have been taught, for example, that you're no good, you can't do anything right. And I know a lot of women suffer with this, but how they were so denigrated and mistreated and verbally, emotionally abused to believe that they're not worth anything.
Mm-hmm.
That emotional bundle of all of the wounds, all of the thoughts, all of the eating, acting out patterns is going to form the eating patterns, which lead to influencing a poor relationship with food.
What's up, you beautiful beasts? I'm Katie. I'm on a mission to help humans become their favorite versions of themselves and to strive for overall health by healing their relationship to food and exercise, healing their relationship to their body, and most importantly, healing their relationship to themselves, all without ever having to step on a scale. I have had the privilege to talk to all kinds of different humans who have been through a plethora of experiences just being a human and existing. I believe that every single time someone shares their story, at least one person listening will learn from it, be inspired by it, and maybe, just maybe, even change the entire direction of their life. These are the stories of humans unveiling their beautiful beast. Keep listening. This is the Unveiling the Beast podcast. Thank you for coming on the show and saying yes.
Well, thanks for having me.
Yeah, it's good to have you here. Can you tell me and the listeners a little bit about who you are and why you think you are who you are?
Well, it's been a journey of self-discovery and healing and growth and unfoldment. And I started, my first awakening process began when I was in college years ago, and I started questioning everything, everything in my life of what I'd been taught. I was raised in a very structured, kind of strict religious environment, and that dictated everything of what we did, what we thought, how we acted, spoke, all the things. And so when I got to college, which, by the way, was owned by that religious organization, I started questioning everything. And I was in the art department. I got my bachelor's in art, fine art. And that, for that time and that environment, that was the best place for me to be looking back, because it was the most liberal and liberal place within that college to where I could question and challenge things. And I had some professors, college teachers, who would encourage us to do that. So that opened up a whole can of worms. And I started looking to the books in the bookstore, the college bookstore. And then when I could, then I would go to a nearby town to the first metaphysical bookstore that they had. It was one of the very first ones. And I would pick up whatever topic called to me. And I was led towards all kinds of metaphysical everything, as well as psychological family patterns, a little bit of counseling, self-development, channeling works, and eventually landed on energy healing and spiritual psychic development. And that just rattled me and caught my attention like nothing I'd ever experienced. And so I pursued that. And I just thought, I wish I could have someone in my life, a healer in my life, who was had the very skilled at doing energy healing work and very psychically open and intuitive, that could be able to help me heal, because I knew there was so much stuff going on in my life inside that I was just miserable, and I was just not functioning very well in my life. And so fortunately, after 7 years post college, then I was at a lapidary shop of a friend that I knew in college, and she would tell me about this customer that would come in, and every now and again she would do energy healing or energy work on her wrist, because where she's doing lapidary work, jewelry work, it's very teeny tiny movements, and you're holding instruments for a long period of time, and so you can get a lot of carpal tunnel. And immediately it's like, oh my gosh, I have to meet this woman, because in the very conservative town where I was at, I was thinking, how could anybody in the universe be in this town that knew how to do energy healing work in the way that I was asking for? And so a few weeks later, she happened to show up at the same time I was there. And so I got her number, started having her work on me. And it was a very interesting experience in that I'd have a session and then I'd feel clear and calm. And then 2 or 3 weeks later, I started to feel congested. And it's hard to describe because it's a very energetic, emotional type of a non-tangible thing of I just need to be cleared. I need to have some more work done to get the congestion moved through my system. So after a few months, then I asked her if she would be willing to teach me how to do this work. And at the time, I was so timid. I was so timid and shy, and like you'd look at me and you'd like see a lost child of no confidence, couldn't speak up, everything. So at that time, it took a lot for me just to ask her, would you please teach me how to do this work? And so she goes, of course. And so over the next several years, then that unfolded a beautiful friendship and relationship. I learned an incredible amount from her of how to open my psychic senses, which we all have. We're all wired for that. And to be able to sense my energy system, the chakras or the energy centers, and learn how to process my own emotional healing work. So when anything got triggered of conversation, experience, whatever, and I would come home from work and I'd sit down and do a meditation and I tune into myself, my energy system, and using the techniques that she taught me, be able to move the energy, slough off the emotional charge of things, to be able to identify what was the belief, the experience underneath that, the energy, the emotional energy that got triggered. And so doing that over time, then I became very skilled at facilitating myself to where I would only need to go to a healer every now and again if I got stuck. And so that process taught me so much about myself, who I am, the patterns, the conditioning, the belief systems that I was raised with, even genetic ancestral influences that came through that would influence how I am today. And so that laid a considerable groundwork for healing work. And then over time, then we had a lot of conversations about the care for the body, especially the digestive system, the intestines being the second brain, and how sensitive they are, and the food, and all things related physically. And at the time, I was very disconnected to my body, and I was like, it was just I didn't really want to go there. And now I understand why, which I'll get to in a bit. But so from that I learned the initial things of starting to know how to eat healthy, whole foods that didn't contain harmful chemicals that just exacerbate all kinds of conditions, especially and including keeping emotional issues and patterns lodged within the body and within the energy system. So later on, a few years later, after all of that, then I became a Reiki master myself as a form of just starting to do energy work. And then I also went to massage school to work with the body. And then that unfolded a whole new realm of understanding how the energy system interfaces with the body, where in the body emotional patterns and issues are stored, like in the hips or the breast or the lungs or the gut or the shoulders. Everything talks and everything is related. And then follow that several years later, then I would have clients come to me for a massage, and they'd give me this laundry list of things. It's like, I want this and this and this fixed. And I was like, honey, this is not something that can be done in one massage. And also what they were asking for was things that related to lifestyle and diet that were showing up as pain and discomfort in the physical body. It's how they were living, how they were eating and thinking. And then from that, I was like, okay, let me learn more about natural healing principles and nutrition. So I went back to school again and became a holistic nutritionist, learned natural healing principles, how to cleanse and detox the body, became a health coach. And so I could pull all of this together from the energetic structure, understanding the energy system of the body, the emotional healing work, the physical healing, the cleansing and detoxing, the lifestyle, so that now when I work with people, then it's like, let's look at all of you. It's not just about taking a supplement or a pill, because that's not going to fix anything. It's like, let's look at you. Who are you? What's going on in your life? What are the pains, the angers, the thoughts, the things about yourself that you may not want to look at because they cause discomfort, and it's difficult to face those feelings. And what I found is that facing those feelings is the road to self-discovery and healing. So that's kind of, in a nutshell, how I am, who I am today.
All of that. I love it. Because so many people are so focused on like how we eat and how we move. That's the only aspect of health. And it's just so much more than that. And,
Yeah.
you know, my own personal experience recently has been getting enough sleep.
Yeah.
And sleep is like, sleep connects to all of it. Sleep connects to your appetite. Sleep connects to how you move. And sleep connects to your energy and all of that. And so I love that. I love talking to people like you who talk about all of it being your health rather than just what you stick in your mouth and what you do at the gym.
Yeah. And it's just, that's how my experience has unfolded. And, you know, I look at a lot of people, they are very, I don't want to say stuck. It's just so many people have been taught that the physical material things that we can see, touch, and feel with our five senses, that's all that exists.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a belief that's gone back several hundreds of years. And certain ways of interpreting and understanding science and medicine enforce that. And yet, on the other hand, there's so much of life experienced that says that's not how things are. That's not how we are constructed. You know, we've got feelings and thoughts that you can't deny affect every aspect of our life and our relationships, and yet you can't see them and touch them, but they're real.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you can have dreams that impact you and leave a lasting impression. You can't see them and touch them, but yet you know they're real. And so I think in this era of time when there's so much information coming on board or out in the open, so much discovery of all sorts of things, that it's really imperative that we stretch our definition of who we are to encompass ourselves as energetic beings, stretch our window or idea far beyond just the physical. Because let's face it, we're dealing with energetic technologies and things every day. I mean, even just doing this podcast, you know, we're dealing with frequencies and energies and wavelengths and, you know, things that we can't physically see and touch.
Yeah.
So,
I love that explanation.
Yeah.
So on the topic of nutrition, do you talk with your clients about like relationship to food? I ask because my main thing is helping people heal their relationship to food and like getting rid of the toxic side of diet culture. And and some people think that means giving up on diet, which it's not. It's actually feeding your body better. And I don't know if I'm saying this how I'm picturing it in my head, but does that make sense to you?
Yeah. Yeah. So there's a couple of things that come to mind when you brought that up. And so if you would bear with me and I'll share some of my thoughts. So one of the things when I was learning about natural healing, holistic healing principles is from a man who studied what ancient cultures did way before Big Pharma came along. How did they take care of themselves? And how did they see their relationship to their body and food and all of, you know, life around them? And so if you look at the word diet, diet, If you flip it around, DEIT, then that connotates a remembrance of who we actually are as deity, of energetic, sacred, spiritual beings. So I like to do this play on words with the diet of when I'm talking with clients, it's like, okay, let's look at the food choices that we've done for our lives and understanding the quality of food, the contamination of food, the sourcing and all the things. And then really becoming very conscientious of what is the end result you desire for yourself? Who do you think that you are, believe that you are? Do you believe that you're just Mary Jo that works at 7-Eleven and is just on this treadmill of survival and can never get beyond a certain level of life satisfaction? Or do you believe that you are a sacred, creative, spiritual being of straight from source, from deity? Okay, because that fundamental idea and belief about who you are is going to dictate your food choices. So if you believe that you're Mary Jo working at 7-Eleven, then you're most likely going to choose foodstuffs that are found in 7-Eleven, and the inevitable consequences or results of those choices is cellular breakdown and ultimately disease and sickness. And so I call that dietary path or dietary direction, the dietary path to disease and death. Is that where you want to end up? Okay, what are you creating and choosing here? Or on the other side, if you have this belief about yourself that you are a divine, creative, spiritual being, that there's more to you than this physical form, and you're going to choose foods that support that unfoldment of self, which is going to be whole foods made from the plant in the ground, not a plant and a food from a manufacturing plant owned by a globalist corporation. Whole foods, fruits, vegetables, nuts, and seeds, legumes, herbs. Okay. I call that the dietary path to deity. It supports your body in unfolding and functioning at its highest capacity. Therefore, you as a spiritual being living in this body has the vitality, the energy, the longevity to express yourself through this body into your life, to offer whatever your gifts are that you have chosen to come into this life to offer other people, to make life a better place. So it's two paths. Which one are you going to choose? So that's one factor. And then along the way, in choosing, and oftentimes, when we're starting out, we just are on default and autopilot, and we succumb to advertising. And so we buy foods that are not healthy for us. And then we have health conditions, i.e. gut issues or hormonal or weight or all the things. And so it's a journey to go from one dietary path over to the other dietary path. And that process of growth and healing is also the redefining of who we are. And so then this leads me to the second thought that came up when you asked me that question is, who are you? Are you the person that your environment taught you to be based upon other people's desires and agendas so that they can feel comfortable with what they view the life and world is? Like your parents, school, religions, the media, society. If you have been taught, for example, growing up that that you're no good, you can't do anything right. And I know a lot of women suffer with this, but ended up with very low self-esteem and confidence. And it's just painful to hear some of their stories of how they were so denigrated and mistreated and verbally, emotionally abused, frankly, to believe that they're not worth anything. Mm-hmm. That emotional bundle of all of the wounds, all of the thoughts, all of the eating, acting out patterns is going to form eating patterns, which lead to influencing a poor relationship with food. And then you can fall into the cycle of all the emotional eating patterns, which to the extreme can go to bulimia, and anorexia and binging, and whenever you feel bad or feel triggered or something happened and you want to just sink home or sink in your couch at home in front of the TV with half a gallon of ice cream and a bag of chips, and then you hate yourself for, oh my God, I did it again. It's easy to fall into that binging cycle of the emotional eating. And so how to breaking that is the process of learning to define who you really are, learning to discover who you are, that you're not the person that those authority figures of your youth told you that you are. It's unwinding and letting go of that, which is, again, the internal healing work, and discovering I'm really good at creativity. I'm really good at supporting people. These are my gifts and abilities. I want to share this with other people, and then develop the courage and the confidence to do so. So it's shifting at the base. Who do you believe that you are? And then living your life accordingly, choosing your foods accordingly. And in that process, then you discover and have to deal with the pain of those experiences that hurt you when you were taught that you were nobody. It's just allowing yourself to feel that, to let that emotional energy move, come unfrozen and move through your body, out of your system, and then you're free of it. And when you're free of those patterns and that pain and those belief systems, you will make better choices with your food, and it's not going to drive you in the emotional eating patterns like it used to do. So there's a lot there, but that's kind of the nuts and bolts of that healing process.
Yeah. And that is such a beautiful explanation. I've never heard it explained that way. And I love it because it takes into consideration the mental piece. And I call that mental training in my programs.
Mm-hmm.
And it is I love that you start with, who are you? Because my whole idea of our health is it's our behaviors. Like my thing is, like, so many people only focus on the number on the scale, and by doing that, they're missing everything else around them that's happening with their health. And so it's getting these behaviors so habitual that they become who you are, rather than the outside world telling you what you have to do. And so I love the way you explained it, because it just like digs right into the whole human.
Yeah. And I like what you said about how, the behaviors, the thoughts, the conditioning that we received in early childhood, that develops who we think we are.
Mm.
I call it the false identity. It's an ego-based identity,
mm-hmm.
based upon protecting yourself from this barrage of mistreatment from the world, or people telling you negative things about yourself. And it's an internalization of all of those voices. And so we kind of hold back and cower down. There's this big protection barrier armoring that happens, which is just the natural thing. And so our body kicks in with the nervous system of the fight, the armoring, the arguing, the pushing people away, all of the defensive mechanisms to preserve our sense of self and control of our life, because it's at some point then we felt like our sense of self has been so shattered. And again, the process of that is recognizing when you're triggered. It's like, oh, wow, I'm responding from a trauma response, which leads me to defend and act in a certain way according to what outer authorities, other people in life expect of me. So it's a false front. And so when you can start to unpeel those layers, take down the bricks of that wall, then finding who you really are that your core identity is still intact, and it always will be intact. It just gets suppressed. And then there's no longer the need to defend, because you recognize, wow, I was defending an identity that's not even real, that was chosen for me by outside authority voices.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a really big shift in claiming your own authority over self. I choose who I am. I choose how I respond. I choose what I put in my mouth. I choose how I earn a living. It's a big step for people. And it takes a lot of courage and empowerment to say, yes, this is who I am, like it or not. If you don't like it, there's the door, you know?
Mm.
So it's such a big journey of unfoldment and self-discovery and all the things.
Yeah. And I'll share with you just the short version of my story. I was made fun of. I was made fun of for being the fat girl. And looking back now, I wasn't. But kids are mean and cruel.
Yeah.
So I was made fun of for being the fat girl. My grandma wanted to send me to fat camp. I was put on weight loss medication when I was 10. And so like all of the messages I was getting as a whole said, you take up too much space.
Mm.
And so based on that, I spent 27 years on a diet until and thrashing my body in the gym, all for the sake of shrinking my body and in the name of health. And all I did was make myself sicker.
Yeah.
And so when I started the deep work with coaches and just learning who I am doing these things for myself, out of love for myself, and therefore I'm going to love on myself by doing these behaviors and habits. So it's such a big shift in thinking, and it's life-changing.
Yeah, it really is. I mean, the learning to love yourself after years of all those negative voices is so hard.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I went through it like anybody else does, and it's so difficult. And it's gradually choosing to value yourself. So one thing that I discovered in a lot of my energy healing emotional work was, for several years, I wasn't very grounded in my body. And at the time, I mean, I couldn't really see that. Other people could. It wasn't until I had done enough work that I guess I crossed some type of a threshold to where I was more physically grounded, focused, present in my life, in the 3D world that we're in. Only then could I see, oh, wow, I really wasn't grounded back then. And so what I learned from that experience is the body holds all of that, the trauma, all of the emotional ups and downs and issues, and the voices and the beliefs that other people impose on us, all of that pain. So much of that is stored in the gut and in the pelvic bowl. Hence, reproductive issues, hormone issues, diet, body issues, body image, all the things. As I was able to heal a lot of my emotional stuff, then that distorted, traumatized, painful energy, emotional energy, no longer resided within my pelvic bowl and within my belly. The energy that runs through that area of my body was shifted and changed to a more life-enhancing, supportive energy flow. And then as my being, I felt much more comfortable being in my body. And so I became more grounded because that pain was no longer sitting in my pelvic bowl and my belly.
Mm.
And so the one thing that I've learned along the way of, when we're looking, especially with many women, of the self-love journey, the loving the body, loving the self, of how to care for it. And, your body is what it is. It's a beautiful, sacred gift, really shifting that paradigm. It's very challenging because we look in the mirror and oftentimes our perception can be distorted. It's like you were saying, it's like, I don't like how I look, how I feel. It's like I'm too big, too fat, too thin, all the things. So when you focus on the area of your body, let's say the hips, that triggers the most self-criticism, I invite your audience to see that as a barometer and an indication of an area of your body that is holding traumatic experiences and emotions and beliefs that you have yet to explore, yet to feel. And so hence it's an invitation. Are you willing to connect with that area of the body, to sense what that area of the body is holding for you, and thus is waiting to teach you about yourself? Because if you can look into that energetic content or data within the tissues of that area of your body and learn to heal it, then the conversation in your head about your body changes, as well as the conversation of who you believe that you are changes. And it's much easier to love your body and care for it and do all the things that support health, rather than the self-sabotaging, self-punishing activities that are so prone to happen.
Yeah.
And it's learning to understand that this body is such a gift. It is very sacred. We are hardwired with capacities and abilities we have not even begun to understand. One of them being all of the psychic abilities to see, to hear, the clairaudience, clairsentience, intuition, telepathy. That's just one small example of what we have the capacity to do and become. And so it's an invitation to learn more about who we are and our body and what it is capable of doing, and choosing, do I want to expand and develop myself into what this body is capable of what the potential is as a human, as a woman? Or am I going to stay shrunk back in smallness and fear and all of these things that people have put on me about who they want me to be, and then make choices about what I put into my body that ultimately is going to lead to deterioration? And it's once you can just, sometimes all it takes is just a sense, a feeling, a glimpse into that, and allow that emotion, that feeling of, oh, wow, this is a very sacred vessel. Allow that information to seep through you and touch your heart. That can change so much chatter and action about how you care for your body that you'll never be the same, in a good way. So
I almost don't want to follow up with that with what I'm about to say, because that was so beautiful. My first awareness to what I was doing to my body and my first relief came when I got pregnant with my son. And awareness meaning, like, I knew when I got pregnant that I had to stop what I was doing because it would harm the baby, right?
Yeah.
And relief knowing, oh my God, I don't have to count every single calorie that goes into my mouth, and I don't have to go on my spin bike 9 times a week and do CrossFit 3 times a week. It was relief, like, just let myself be and grow this child.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, it wasn't the end of my disordered eating, but it was the start to healing of just coming into this awareness of, I need to stop what I'm doing because that's hurting me. It's not helping.
Yeah. Yeah. motherhood, childbirth, that can be it is a very big turning point in the life of women.
Mm-hmm.
And it really, I think, helps open our mind to a much larger perspective of life, because here this other child, this life that you're now responsible for, and it's easy to get locked into our little bubble of self-criticism, and then it feels like we're just stuck in that hell. And how do I get out? I hate this. I don't like it, and all the things. But yet, it's so easy to get stuck in it. And so sometimes it does take another experience or a conversation or another outside influence from another person to help pull us out of that bubble. And it's like, wait a minute, wow, let me forgive myself and start to love myself and take care of myself better and understand what this body has to offer me, and all those things. So yeah, that's wonderful that you were able to pull out of that loop. So,
Yeah. And it was the pelvic, what did you call it? The pelvic
bowl.
Thank you, pelvic bowl.
Yeah.
Well, this has been an awesome conversation. I have chills all over my body. But I do have one more question for you. If you had one piece of advice that you could give to the world, what would it be?
It would be primarily for women. Sometimes I get emotional when I speak this because it does touch my heart. For women to be able to really come to understand their beauty, their divinity, their creativity, to learn to value themselves, to embrace their power. We are so much more powerful than we give ourselves credit for. To affect the lives of those around us in a loving, beautiful, enhancing way. But just to be willing to explore what else is out there. How else can I view myself? How else can I understand my body? What is the power of the feminine and its role in creativity and life, and understand how it's been so suppressed and so abused for thousands of years. To be able to free ourselves from that cultural heritage of abuse and suppression, to really reclaim our voice and our power again. If more women could come to that stance, life would change in a month. The way our life is, society is set up, everything would change in a month. Women wouldn't tolerate a lot of the nonsense that's going on. So that's what I would leave. The message that I would leave for people, women, today.
Beautiful beasts, Loralee Humpherys, signing off. Until next time.